Update. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to befriend my landlady's son? Original post. I, 21 female, recently, about a month ago, started renting a room in a family home. It's in their basement, and I have my own entrance, kitchen, and bathroom. I generally don't need to go upstairs for any reason. The family who lives in the house consists of a middle-aged couple and their 18-year-old son. The son has a room in the basement next to mine, but he goes upstairs to eat, so he doesn't use my kitchen. There isn't any common space in the basement apart from the kitchen and bathroom, so I don't really see him that much. I spend most of my time in my room when I'm at home, and so does he. However, a couple of days ago, the mother, my landlady, came downstairs to talk to me, and she seemed upset about the fact that I hadn't been trying to befriend her son after I moved in. She said he's nervous about leaving his room because I'm so unapproachable, and that I should try to be more friendly and get to know him. Now, I haven't exactly been trying to start conversations with him, but I don't think I've been hostile either. I've smiled at him politely and said hi whenever we saw each other in the hallway, and he's never made an effort to talk to me either, so I don't know what my landlady was expecting. When I moved in, she did tell me that her son lives in the basement too, and that maybe we could become friends. However, she didn't phrase it in a way that made me think she was expecting me to actively make an effort to befriend him. I just assumed she thought it would be a nice thing to happen, but not an expectation. I was never against the idea of being friends with him, and if it had happened organically, that would have been cool. But being asked by his mommy to befriend him isn't really making me want to make an effort. It also wouldn't feel like a real friendship if I'm only doing it because I'm being asked to. But I'm also thinking that maybe I should just try and talk to him since it's not his fault that his mother is like that, and I obviously want to keep the peace. But I don't know. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be friends with my landlady's son at this point? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. Her son feeling intimidated by you is on him, not you. Unless your resting face is particularly grim. I mean, I think I look normal, but I'm not getting dressed up to walk around in my own home, so maybe that's making me seem unapproachable? I don't know. He's 18. That could be a high school student that recently graduated. You're 21. That's 3 years out of high school as an adult. What in the world is this woman thinking? Continue as you are, while looking for a new space and move ASAP. Trouble ahead, avoid it. Are there any more details? Does he work? Or is he just holed up in his parents' basement? Is he a student? Does the family seem stable, reasonably normal? Well, wait, not normal to make that friend request. Are you there a lot? Working? Student? Are they expecting you to become like family? Have they been inviting you upstairs? Leaving you in peace? Is there a lock on your door? The son is in high school. I am studying to become a nurse and work as a bartender during weekends. I have never been invited upstairs. The dad and son seem normal. The mom is basically the only one I've had an actual conversation with. Oh, and my room does have a lock. Thanks. That gives more perspective. Have you made any decisions? Yeah, I'm going to look for a different place to live. Also, my landlady has tried to impose new rules several times that weren't discussed when I moved in or mentioned in my lease, such as me not being allowed to come home after 10 p.m. Not the a-hole. The son, I would hope, probably has no idea his mom tried to set him up with you, haha. He probably doesn't think those things about you either. It's probably her being a bit frustrated or whatever that her plan didn't work, from what she can see. It's a bit odd. I really hope this doesn't mess with you living there and whatnot. Don't do anything you don't want to do. Just keep being polite as you've been. I really do hope the son had no idea about this. If he did, it would be a bit weirder. Now for the update 1.5 months later. So, I moved out. My problems with my landlady only got worse. When I moved in, she told me I was allowed to have guests over as often as I liked. But then later, she changed it to twice a week after I had a friend over for several days in a row. And with everything else going on, I couldn't help thinking she was trying to force me to spend less time with my friends, so I'd be more likely to want to talk to her son. This also wasn't the first time she suddenly added new rules after I had already signed the lease. She also asked me not to come home after 10 p.m. because their dogs would bark when I walked in the driveway. I would not have moved in if this rule had been mentioned before I signed the lease because I work as a bartender. So it's not really an option for me to never come home after 10 p.m. All your replies really validated my concerns and confirmed that I was not overreacting. So I started looking for different living arrangements. I talked to my friends about it, and one of them immediately said he'd actually been considering renting out a room in his apartment to save some money, so I moved in with him 2 weeks later. My landlady seemed quite happy to get rid of me if I'm being completely honest. According to my lease, I was supposed to put in a 4-week notice, but when I told her I was moving out, she asked me how soon I could do it. Maybe she's going to try and find someone else to set up with her son because her plan didn't work with me. Anyways, not my problem anymore. I'm chaotic. I would have told his son I'm leaving because his mother was trying to force you to make friends with him. Yeah, I opted to stay out of trouble, LOL. Well, the attempt to put a 10 p.m. curfew on me would also be just as big a reason for me if I were in your shoes. Both show that this woman didn't think of you as her tenant and herself as a landlord, but rather as a teenage child in her home and subject to her rules. And that is toxic AF. Good for you for escaping his mom pimp. I had the same problem with a place I worked. We had a board of directors, and each one of them asked me, at separate times, to have dinner at their homes as a welcome thing. Except one, mid-60s, female board member, would always have her mid-30s son with her when she stopped by work and would always leave him to chat with me when she was in the office. Her dinner came around, and when I walked into her dining room, it was set up for 2. Her son was there and she said, "I'm going to bed. You two have fun." I noped out of there. 2 days later, he showed up at work and tried to SA me because I was a bitch who wouldn't give him a chance. I called the cops, quit my job, and moved. The escalation here is crazy. It was, but after the fact, a couple other employees said the guy had a history of DV, and that's why he lived with Mummy. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not sending my niece's dad updates after he kicked her out? My 15-year-old niece Amy has been living with me for 4 years. Her mom left when she was 2. Her dad and grandparents gave her a very good life. Private schools, competitive sports, etc. Then her grandparents passed away when she was 7 and 9. Her dad married Grace when Amy was 10. Grace had 3 kids, 2 older than Amy and 1 younger. Amy never got along with Grace or her kids. Grace had no intention of being a mother to Amy, but still insisted that her father treat all of the kids equally, leading to Amy getting pulled out of her school and activities because he couldn't afford it for everyone, which caused Amy to act out. After a year, Grace gave Amy's dad an ultimatum. Either Amy goes or she does. Next thing I know, Amy's getting shipped across the country to my place. It was rough at first, but after a lot of therapy and me doing everything I can to prove that I won't leave, she's doing great. She does well in school, and I got her back into her sports. Contact with her dad has been minimal. He calls around Christmas and her birthday, and he's visited twice. 8 months ago, Amy was diagnosed with a serious, life-threatening illness. We ended up moving to be closer to some of the top specialists, and as of now, things are getting under control. I never told her dad about her illness because he never asked. Her dad found out that Amy was sick through a family member's Facebook post. He's been calling and texting me, furious that I never told him about Amy's illness, asking if I know how bad it is to find out that his kid is severely ill from Facebook, and threatening to take me to court to get my custody revoked. Losing custody is highly unlikely, but I plan to talk to Amy about pursuing adoption just in case. When I talk to some friends about the situation, they all think I should have at least texted Amy's dad and given him a chance to visit Amy when she was sick, especially back when we didn't know what was going to happen. Now I'm wondering if I was being too petty by not telling him that she was sick. Not the a-hole. He gave up his kid the second he agreed to that ultimatum. He gave up updates, visits, and any say in anything she does, and you were not wrong for focusing on her rather than him. Exactly. You can't opt out of the heavy lifting of parenting and still expect a front row seat to the kid's life. He wants the warm fuzzies of knowing how she's doing without having to actually be a father. Not sure he cares about the kid as much as he does about how bad he looks on Facebook because he didn't know about her illness. Not the a-hole. You don't owe her sperm donor anything. Would it have been nice? Sure. Necessary? No. He abandoned his 11-year-old for a relationship with someone who hates his kid. He doesn't keep in contact with her and has seen her twice in 4 years. Are you kidding me? He doesn't get to play concerned father after what he's done. And I have no doubt that if he tries to get custody, which, let's be honest, is an empty threat, Grace would never allow that, and he would be decimated in court. Not only is she 15 and has a say in custody, but considering how minimal his contact has been with her, he should fit the definition of abandonment. Talk to Amy and see what she wants, and consult a lawyer as needed. As for him, it was his responsibility to check on his daughter. He never did. That's on him. Twice in 4 years is basically a guest appearance. It's kind of wild that he suddenly wants full parent privileges now. The guy treated fatherhood like an optional subscription, and now he's mad the app stopped sending notifications. Last story. Am I the a-hole for reminding my mother-in-law that her son is not her child support? Throw away because I'm conflicted and probably going to take this down, but me, 23 female, and my husband, 25 male, have been together since I was 16 and he was 18. We've known each other since I was 13 and he was 15. He started working for my dad on the farm and then eventually worked for my dad in the shop. Before he was 18, he had moved out of his mother's house due to his stepdad being abusive and having issues. And honestly, his mom chose stepdad over her son all the time. He'd mistreat him, call him names, steal his stuff, and his mom just let him. She has 2 younger kids with a stepdad, an 8 female and a 5 male. His sister has autism and is nonverbal, and then obviously the youngest. When she had them, my husband told me he kind of felt pushed out by his mom. She no longer had time for him and missed a lot. So when he moved out at 16, she didn't put up much of a fight. I don't mind his mom. She's never been hostile toward me or rude, but I wasn't allowed over there when his stepdad was there. My husband just didn't want me around him. He isn't a great guy and my husband doesn't like him. My husband and I live in a little place with our daughter. He's still working at the farm and the shop and does pretty well for himself, while I work as a paralegal. We make good money and are comfortable for the most part. On to the issue. Almost every day his mom calls him asking for money. $20 for food, $40 for gas here and there. Recently it's been insane amounts, like $700 to $1,000. My husband gets annoyed. He will ignore her calls and give her excuses why he can't, but usually ends up giving it to her. The stepfather just got out of jail and is already going to rehab. She hasn't received any money from him at all, or so she claims. We went there together and she had texted him, asking him for $2,000 to pay for her youngest son's dental work that he needs done. My husband got annoyed and told her no. She got red in the face as I picked up my daughter and started getting her ready to leave. They were arguing back and forth, and she yelled at him saying he never does anything for his family. I snapped. I don't know why, but I looked at her and said, "My husband does everything for his family." I gestured toward me and my daughter. These children are his siblings, not his children. He doesn't owe you anything for them. He is your son, not your piggy bank that you can use when you want things. She looked at me and then asked my husband if he was going to let me talk to her like that. I handed my daughter to my husband and told her not to ask my husband for another cent of money until she apologized to him for speaking to him the way she did. I'm adding this note. She doesn't and hasn't worked at all. We left and she tried texting and calling. I muted her texts and silenced his phone. She was going on about how ungrateful he was and how little he cared about them. He seemed really sad on the way home, but told me when we got to bed that he was thankful I said what he couldn't. He cried, saying sometimes he felt like his mom didn't care about him and only cared about his money, that she never checks on him or asks him how he's doing. He said he felt pushed out by her and that no matter what he did, it was never enough, even though he did a lot for them. I know he does and did. He would miss work all the time to watch his siblings, which luckily my dad was lenient about. Anywhere else he would have been fired. He lived with my family from the ages of 18 to 22. There was a lot of understanding about the situation, and honestly, he's lucky my dad liked him so much because the number of times she needed him to watch the kids or pick them up was unreal. It's been 2 days, and I was talking to my mom and dad a little about it. My dad told me that I wasn't wrong in defending my husband, but I should have stayed out of it. My mom told me what she was doing wasn't right, and it wasn't fair to my husband, but he should have been the one to say it to her. I want to add that my husband is undiagnosed, but I'm pretty sure he's a little on the spectrum. When he gets excited about something, he waves his arms up and down. He gets easily overwhelmed, and he shuts down really easily. I'm not a professional, and I'm not determining anything or undermining anything. It's just that most of these traits are similar to my little cousin who is diagnosed and on the spectrum. You'd have to meet him to understand. I'm adding this because he's very easily manipulated. I've watched it in many of his relationships and situations around him. I'm super protective of him. He saved my life in so many ways as I struggle with depression. He is so good with our daughter. He treats me amazingly. And I trust him with my whole heart. It's like when I see someone trying to hurt him or use him, I snap. But maybe I should have left it alone? Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You can never be the a-hole sticking up for your spouse when they're in the right, even if it meant going off on mommy. He told you himself he was grateful, so why would you listen to anyone but him? But he needs therapy. He sends her money because he thinks it will finally buy him the maternal affection he craves and never got, and never will get. He needs to work that out with someone. Mother-in-law sounds like a selfish mother who doesn't have her act together. But does she babysit your daughter? How often? How much do you pay her? I'm wondering if she feels okay asking for monetary favors because she's babysitting her granddaughter regularly for free. This is a good question. My daughter's 2.5, almost 3. No, my mother-in-law does not babysit her. My mom usually does if needed, or my sister, since my mom is retired and my sister is a stay-at-home mom. Her child is only 2 months younger than mine, so they're super close regardless. For my daughter's first year, I stayed home with her. Then I went to work and gradually shifted into it. My daughter is also in daycare. My husband works 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., and I work 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sometimes the hours vary depending on the day or month for both of us. During the summer, my husband works 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. My husband usually picks her up from daycare when he's done with work and I drop her off. My mom watches her most on the days my husband goes to the farm to do work with my dad, and my sister watches her on the occasional weekends I have to work, since my husband also works on the farm on weekends, or if there are doctor appointments and such. My mother-in-law only really sees her when my husband stops by with her, when we go to dinner, or when there's a birthday or event. Also, the stepfather has never met my daughter. My husband wouldn't even let me be around him, let alone our daughter.